Now, assuming there's no questions, I will just talk about the possible trade deadline targets for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I don't have every name here. I apologize. Like, this is not going to be an extensive list, but I do want to talk about the two biggest positions in need. Number one, third line center, as I just mentioned. You need to get a center in here, and the Leafs know that that is their number one, target area. And then you probably need another defenseman. You have a choice of either getting a right-handed defenseman to play with Morgan Riley, or you could do a left-handed defenseman to play on the third pair, and then you run Ekman Larson with Morgan Riley. So we're going to start with center because I have more names here. Number one, this is probably if you're going to go big game hunting, this would probably be the guy you go after. Brock Nelson. Here's the thing. The Islanders are winning and they're delusional. So they're probably not going to trade him. We'll see. If Brock Nelson is available, he's been a 30 goal scorer multiple times. He's a proven solid center. I don't know how else to say that. He's a very good center that has got it done in the playoffs before, and he would be as good of a third line center as they've had. The Ryan O'Reilly was better, but Ryan O'Reilly was hurt. Like, he had that finger thing in the playoffs, like he broke his finger or something. So Brock Nelson would probably be the best third line center they've had since Kadri was here. And Kadri was suspended, so he wasn't very useful in the playoffs. Next, this one sucks because he got hurt. Yanni Gourde also would have been a very, very solid option. He's hurt. You can still acquire him. He's just not going to have as much runway to get up to speed with your team before the trade deadline. It's going to be harder to develop chemistry with these guys. So that's a factor. Now, the other two I wrote down, one of them won't happen. The other one is just like, if nothing else materializes, you're punting. So the one I wrote down because Jonas Siegel had put him in his article in The Athletic. Trent Frederick, he also put Charlie Coyle, but two Bruins guys. I like Trent Frederick. He's relatively young. I think he's 26. He's shown some glimpses of offense in his career. He's not the best at it. He's a very feisty player, though, and he would be a good defensive third-line center if that's the route you want to go. That being said, I doubt the Bruins trade him in division. We'll see, but that'd be an interesting target. The next one, the one that would be you effectively punting, would be someone like Ryan Donato, who is very cheap and is fine. He's better than Pontus Holmberg. At that point, I'd probably rather just stay with Fraser Minton, but that's an option. Then there's this one. And this is a weird one because it makes no sense for him to be available. And based on what we've been told, there's no way the Leafs would be able to acquire him. But I do need to mention him because he's been in the news in the last few days. Dylan Cousins. Why the Sabres would ever trade him is beyond me. He's 23 years old. He has a 30-goal season to his name. He's huge. He's a physical right-handed center, and he is signed to a very manageable cap hit until 2030. If he's available, that is the slam dunk acquisition you can make. You can argue he's had a down couple of years since that 30-goal season, and my counter to that is he's on the Buffalo Sabres. If you put him next to William Nylander for the next 5 years, 6 years, whatever, guarantee you he'd be a much better player. That being said, we've also heard that the Sabres would like to do an apples for apples deal in the sense that they want to acquire someone who is a similar profile. I don't know what that really looks like. To me, it just sounds like the Sabres saying, hey, if Vancouver wants to trade Elias Pettersson, we will send Dylan Cousins back the other way. That's what it kind of, like, that's how I interpret it. That being said, if the Sabres change their minds at all and they're just like, you know what, we're just going to trade Cousins, you trade a first rounder, you trade Easton Cowan or Fraser Minton, whoever, probably Easton Cowan because he's more highly sought after, and you say, thank you very much, because that would be your 2C for the next 5 years after this. But again, I doubt that'll happen. So if I do, like, again, if he was healthy, I would go after Gourde. I would inquire on Brock Nelson, but they need a center. They just need a center. Flipping over to the defense, I didn't have a ton of names. Again, I'll mention the Bruins guy, Brandon Carlo. That'd be a slam dunk acquisition. He'd be a great top 4 right-handed defenseman. There's no way the Bruins would trade him in division. Why would they do that? It makes no sense. But if he's available and they're willing to, would be a slam dunk. The another name is, so there's Connor Murphy from the Blackhawks, big physical right-handed defenseman. Again, could be a good top 4 right-handed defenseman for the playoffs. He's also very injury prone, so you can't trust him to stay healthy. I don't know if you want to take a gamble that he will stay healthy for these playoffs, because again, the playoffs are notoriously a lot more physical. Other options, one that we saw tonight, Jamie Alexiak. If you want to go for the left-handed route and get a third pairing guy, Alexiak would be very solid. He's huge. He's like 6'7", 260 pounds. If you like Joel Edmondson, that's basically along the same line. Like Edmondson last year, what he brought, that's similar to what Alexiak would bring. Then there's this one. This is a fun one. Luke Schenn. You could bring Luke Schenn back. Now, should be noted, Luke Schenn is signed beyond this season at $2.75 million. So you'd have to get the Predators to retain. You could do that, though. You could ship out a 3rd-round pick for Schenn at 50% retained. You get him for this season and next, and you know that he plays well with Morgan Rielly in the playoffs because you saw it a couple of years ago. That's an option. I will say defense is not as big. Like, again, if he was healthy, a Gord Alexiak package would have been nice. I don't know. If I'm looking at this, like the names I just said, let's say Brock Nelson, it probably runs you a 1st-round pick, and then in turn you would probably want to extend him. So let's say that happens, and then maybe you ship out Nick Robertson, acquire, I don't think you get a 3rd, but maybe you ship out Robertson and a 5th to get a 3rd, flip that 3rd for Luke Schenn at 50% return. Like, I don't know, man. The Leafs need to do something at this deadline. Because, again, as I said, the East is as wide open as it has been in the Matthews era. Granted, the Leafs, we've seen what has happened to them when they've had an easy path before. They choked against Montreal. And if they had beaten Montreal, they would have probably gone to the Cup Finals. Because the Winnipeg was not a serious team. And then Vegas was not that serious of a team. That being said, I don't know. It just sucks because from an optimist standpoint, you say maybe this will be the year they break through. They have a new coach. Maybe he'll get them to play the right way and they'll figure it out in the playoffs. Let's go. The pessimist side of me is like, what have the Leafs done in the Matthews era to prove that they will take advantage of this opportunity? Just depends on how you look at it. But again, we will have a lot of time. We still have like 28 games before the playoffs. So we have lots of time to get into whether or not this team is going to do any sort of significant damage in the playoffs.